Greetings, folks. It's me, once again, your friendly neighborhood integral solver, reporting live from Mount Doom, where I'm trying to forge something. It isn't really that important, it's just, a one ring in order to dominate the free will of the peoples of Middle-earth. But that is not really that important. We have more interesting things at hand, like this integral from negative to positive pi over 2 of cosine square x times the cosine of alpha plus beta tangent x, where alpha and beta are a couple of real parameters. Okay, cool. So how exactly should I go about the solution development? Well, we do notice that this is an integral function of two parameters, alpha and beta, but instead of going for some kind of Feynman's trig approach, we don't need that right now anyway. And we could just expand the cosine term here via the addition formula. So we would have cosine of alpha times the cosine of beta tangent x minus the sine of alpha times the sine of beta tangent x. And now expanding this and using the linearity of the integration operator, we have the integral from negative to positive pi over 2, terribly sorry about that, of cosine square x times, we have a cosine of alpha term, which is of course independent of the x variable with respect to which we're integrating. So we have cosine square x over here, a cosine of alpha term outside, and we do have this cosine of beta tangent x, which does look extremely cool. And then we have this other integral that is minus sine of alpha times the integral from negative pi over 2 to pi over 2 of, again, cosine square x times the sine of beta tangent x dx. Which, good news is, it vanishes because notice that we have tangent x, which is an odd function, sine is an odd function too, cosine is an even function. So if you're integrating an odd function over a symmetric interval, it'll just crash down to 0. So this implies that I, as a function of alpha and beta, is equal to cosine of alpha times the integral from negative pi over 2 to pi over 2 of cosine square x times the cosine of beta tangent x dx. Okay, cool. Now, what I'd like to do is manipulate the cosine squared term a little bit because we do have a tangent term in there. So I'll write this as cosine alpha integral negative pi over 2 to pi over 2 cosine of beta tangent x over secant square x, because 1 over secant is, of course, the cosine function. And we have a dx term over here, which does look quite enticing. But in fact, I'll need another secant square term if I want to introduce a substitution involving the tangent. So I'll expand by secant square again and write this as integral negative pi over 2 to pi over 2, terribly sorry about that, of cosine beta tangent x over secant to the 4th power of x, which I have trouble writing, times secant square x dx. And this is quite nice because, well, secant square is actually equal to 1 plus tangent square. So this term over here can be expanded as 1 plus tangent square x. That's secant square x, so I'm going to have to square the whole thing. And now I can introduce a transformation. We're going to let tangent x here equal u, which implies that secant square x dx equals du on differentiating. And that yields I of alpha and beta being equal to cosine of alpha times the integral. As x approaches negative pi over 2, the tangent approaches negative infinity, and as x approaches pi over 2, it approaches positive infinity. And we have this cosine of beta times u now over 1 plus u squared squared, and secant squared dx transforms into our new differential element. You merely adopted the complex plane. I was born in it, molded by it. Quoting Bane, of course, word for word from The Dark Knight Rises. So we have this interesting looking integral now that we can solve a couple of ways, whether through Feynman's trick, that would be an awesome solution development, or you could use contour integration. And since I've kind of been on this contour integration run, the last few of my videos have been based on it, so why not one more? So we'll define the complex valued function f of z as e to the I beta z over 1 plus z squared squared. And this is cool because the real part of e to the I beta z is going to be cosine of beta z, which is exactly what we need. And because we're dealing with trig functions over quadratic polynomials, no wait, this is a quartic polynomial, so the semicircular contour should do quite well. So here is the complex plane with the imaginary axis and the real axis. And here is the diameter of the circle being of radius r, so there's negative r there, there's a plus r over there, and I would now like to draw my semicircular arc that I will call uppercase gamma, and I'll call the whole thing c. Now our function has poles of order 2, where 1 plus z squared equals 0, implying that z here equals plus or minus I. Now the only pole enclosed by the upper half of the complex plane is z equal to I, which is over here. Okay, cool. So we have a double pole at z equal to I, and if we're interested in the residue of f of z at z equal to I, we need the limit as z tends to I of the derivative with respect to z of z minus I squared times our function, which is e to the I beta z, over the factorized version of the denominator, which is going to be z minus I squared times z plus I whole thing squared. Terribly sorry about that. And let me just write this in a slightly more clean looking fashion. Anyway, so that means these two cancel out, and we're left with the limit as z tends to I of differentiating now yields z plus I squared times e to the I beta z, times differentiating this thing yields I times beta, of course, so I'll write that out first. So I beta e to the I beta z, and then we have minus e to the I beta z times the derivative of the function in the denominator, which is, by the power rule, 2 times z plus I, and of course we have z plus I squared squared, so that's z plus I to the 4th power. Now evaluating the limit yields 2I squared times I beta e to the I squared z minus 2 times e to the I squared beta, that is, terribly sorry about that, it's z being replaced by I, times 2I over, again, 2I to the 4th power. So this yields, what exactly? Oh yeah, 4I squared is just negative 4I beta e to the negative beta, terribly sorry about that, minus 2I e to the negative beta again, times 2 again, so that's 4, divided by 16I to the 4th power. I squared is negative 1, so I to the 4th is just going to be plus 1. I can factor out negative 4I e to the negative beta, and I'm left with a beta plus 1 term up top over 16. And of course, the 16 and the 4 cancel out quite nicely, and we're left with I times e to the negative beta, and we also have this negative sign that I should not forget, over 4 times 1 plus beta. That is the residue of f of z at z equal to I. And of course, by Cauchy's residue theorem, the integral over the closed contour c of our function f equals 2 pi I times the sum of residues of f of z, enclosed by the contour, but there is only one residue to evaluate here, so all I have is 2 pi I times negative 1 over 4. I squared is negative 1, so I'm just left with 2 pi over 4, which is pi over 2 times e to the minus b times 1 plus beta. That is the evaluation of the integral of f over the entire contour. Now, the integral over c can be broken down into the integral from negative r to positive r plus an integral over uppercase gamma. And of course, we're interested in the case of r tending to infinity. So this implies that the limit of the integral over c of f as r tends to infinity, which equals negative r to r turns to negative infinity to infinity. And on the real line, z is parameterized by x, so we have e to the I beta x over 1 plus x squared squared, exactly what we needed, dx plus the limit as r tends to infinity of the integral over the arc gamma of e to the I beta z, terribly sorry about that, over 1 plus z squared squared. And we just saw that this thing evaluates out to pi over 2 times e to the minus beta times 1 plus beta. Now, the integral over gamma collapses to 0 in the limit as r tends to infinity, and that's pretty trivial to see. You can evaluate this using the ML estimate or even Jordan's lemma. So I'll leave that as a little exercise to you guys, calling this, of course, trivial, relatively speaking anyway. So all of this implies that the integral from negative to positive infinity of e to the I beta x over 1 plus x squared squared dx equals pi over 2 times 1 plus beta times e to the negative beta. And of course, separating this into real and imaginary parts gives us the cosine, and it is no surprise that the sine version of the integral should collapse to 0, odd function. So this further implies that the integral from negative to positive infinity of cosine of beta x over 1 plus x squared squared dx equals pi times e to the minus b 1 plus beta over 2. And I'll just leave it in that form now because it looks cool. And of course, our target integral, if I recall correctly, was cosine of alpha times this term. So all of this finally implies that the target integral sorts out to pi times e to the negative beta times 1 plus beta over 2 times cosine of alpha. And yes, of course, if you replace beta by root 5, then you would get a result involving the golden ratio. And of course, as another... What just happened? Oh, I think I moved this somewhere. How did I do that? Much better. Anyway, as another little exercise to you, my viewers, I will assign to you the integral from negative pi over 2 to pi over 2 of sine square x times, again, the cosine of... Wait, what was it? Was it the cosine integral? Yeah, I think it was the cosine one. Alpha plus beta tangent x as a bit of homework. I hope you enjoyed the video. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I hope you learned something from the video. Drop me a follow on Instagram as well. Thank you. See you next time.